Hey there, welcome. I got a really cool video for you guys today. I'm actually on a family vacation in the Bahamas on the Andros Island, and I found a farmer. I didn't think that would happen, but I ran across Mike, and I want to show you around his farm here. It's kind of a hobby farm, but he's also growing and selling to some friends and also to some local resorts. And man, he has got this dialed in so quickly, and he lives in just an amazing place here. So let's check it out. Hey Mike, thanks for having me here, and I just want you to introduce yourself and maybe tell a little bit about like how you got started in this. It's only been a couple years old for you, right?
Yeah, Josh, by the way, it's great having you here. Love your stuff on the YouTube. Yeah, I just decided to start growing on my own here because I'm on an island in the Bahamas, and everything comes by boat or plane, or it doesn't. And the truth of the matter is often it doesn't come, so one day I just woke up, realized I got tired of hunting down my own stuff and decided to grow it.
That's amazing. And man, you stepped in hard here. It's awesome. Just looking around for a few minutes. And I know we were talking a little bit off camera before that this is all hydroponic setup. And what's the main reason behind that?
Well, we're in central Andros, and unfortunately we're not blessed with any soil. It's difficult to bring any soil in. So if you pan around, all you're going to find is rock on rock. So I decided the best thing to do is to try to control the environment as best I could using the most efficient way I could, and I settled in on hydroponics. And I use a variety of different methods of hydroponics to get the job done.
Okay, and it's, as most people probably watching this understand, that it's going to be warm here all year, so you do year-round growing.
Yes.
And so most of this food is for your family and friends, and you sell to you have a little bit of sales outside too,
yeah,
right?
I mean, basically the whole idea was I wanted to grow for myself. I have a villa. I want my guests to have a nice selection. And my affiliation with the local resorts over the years has kind of blossomed into a really nice relationship where I want to share what I can with them so that they can have the versatility of fresh produce that is otherwise not available.
So things like you're growing a lot of like lettuce and cucumbers and tomatoes and peppers. Is that stuff just not available just because it takes so long to ship the stuff in?
Not only does it take time to ship in, but the quality of it when you get it is always a little bit suspect. If it comes by boat, it could be delayed by weather. It can be delayed by breakdowns. If it comes by plane, it's of course limited and very, very expensive. So I just decided to focus in on things that people would essentially put in salads, try to grow those, add in a little bit of my favorites, and end up with something that works for everybody.
So it was started by motivation just to get the food that you wanted.
Exactly.
Okay.
Maybe, you know, they say necessity is the mother of invention. Well, on an island where everything has to come to you and it doesn't come to you, you're left with two choices: do without or do something about it. So I just decided I'm going to do something about it.
Cool. So is this like a homestead on steroids, basically?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
That's what it is.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Let's take a look around.
Okay.
All right, so these are some of your tomatoes here. Can you talk a little about what's going on? I see peppers sort of interplanted.
Yeah, basically I decided to dabble in a variety of different types of growing methods. I use a drain to waste with about a 10% waste to flush out all of the salts. I use drip irrigation. I use hand irrigation. I use timers. In the greenhouse, I'll actually use a recirculating system. I have NFTs. I have...
What's an NFT?
NFT is a nutrient film technique, which basically is you have a continuous supply of nutrients, slowly bathing the root system of your plants, returns by gravity back to a central well, and gets recirculated. Here, because space is a premium, only because you have to clear so much bush. It's all bush or it's all rock. I grow as much as I can vertically. The upside of that is you get really good yields. The downside of it is that you're subjected to the weather, and occasionally, like we're fighting right now, we just came off a really, really heavy wind situation, and we got to prune things back and get them back up and running.
So what are some of the weather issues? A lot of wind, obviously, like hurricanes whenever that happens, but...
Well, yeah, typically our growing seasons don't occur in the prime hurricane season. It's just too hot. But you know what? We're redefining what is too hot now. Here we are in
January.
The first week of January, and it's 84 degrees, where it should be in the mid 70s. And it's playing hell on your growing cycles because certain things that you plant, counting on the cooler weather, doesn't quite do so well when it gets hot. You just hope that you catch a break and it gets back to more of a norm. But the norm seems to keep shifting. Here, what we do is we try to compensate. We put shade cloth up almost all the time because we have such intense sun. Our growing season can be almost 10 months. And then where people overwinter, we actually over summer. When it's time to call an end to producing the fruits because it gets too hot, then we can take cuttings, put them in a nice controlled environment, and stock your next year's supply.
So is the growing slowed down in the summertime? Do you guys sort of take it easy in the summer?
Yes, and different crops, as with farming, you learn. When you have 10 out of 12 months, you learn what's the best time to grow things and when you're just pushing the rock uphill. So you don't do anything that's a cold weather crop in the summertime, unless you go indoors into climate control, which actually I do. But I'll be honest with you, mostly because I like keep my wines cold. I already had the place and it was insulated, and I just said, why not?
Okay.
Otherwise, if you try to grow within the season, you pretty much have to eliminate from the tail end of May until the first couple of weeks of September. It's just too hot. So Josh, one of the things you learn pretty quickly when you're down in the Caribbean and the Bahamas is hot pepper sauce is king. So I decided to grow as many varieties of hot peppers as I can. And my current count is 83 different varieties of hot peppers. And I grow them as an ornamental. They're beautiful plants. They come on different times of the year, but they tend to go strong during the summertime, and they love the heat. So it's kind of good. We've got, simple finger peppers like this to, you've got pimentos, you've got your jalapenos. Of course, the ripe jalapenos I like. It seems the flavor is just a little bit more rounded out, a little hotter. Try to grow at least 12 different varieties of jalapeno peppers. Make poppers with them, make salsas with them. Combine them with the tomatoes, we make salsas, we make chutneys, we make chili sauces. It's just all stuff that is better fresh. I decided to grow these peppers as ornamentals because they're so pretty, and if you get a 5-gallon pot, you can plant a couple of them in there. They produce well. Here I have about 15 different varieties of peppers, including some of the traditionals, some of the really hot ones, Carolina Reapers, goat peppers, finger peppers, Bolivian rainbow peppers, and they all grow really, really well in the heat. Here we are in January, where it's 10 degrees hotter than it should be, but these things are just loving it, and they grow really, really prolifically when it's hot. So, when in Rome, do what the Romans do, and when you're faced with really hot weather, grow things that love really hot weather.
So what are some things that grow naturally here? Well, not naturally, but historically, what have people been growing on the island?
Well, on the island, typically what they'll grow is they'll grow onions up north, but it's very similar to no-till in the sense that they work their soil and put it on top, and then they plant into it. There is a lot of peppers. Peppers are a big thing. They grow coconuts. I have over 140 coconut trees here, which I harvest for the meat and the juice and stuff like that.
No one's growing hot peppers.
They grow hot peppers.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody grows hot peppers because that's what grows.
Okay.
But they export almost all of it. It's really interesting. There's such a strong market for the hot peppers internationally, and everyone sends it over to Nassau, and you go wandering around on the island, and you realize nobody thought to keep any behind. You know, it's all where the market is. But a lot of people will grow them in their backyards. It's the type of thing that if you plant them and you give them a little bit of care, they'll usually give you all you need. Conch salads, a lot of the Bahamian steamed dishes, the fish dishes, they're just so much better with a little bit of heat sparking it up.
Cool. Let's go check out inside your tunnel.
Okay. All right. Here's an example of what happens when you get busy doing one thing and you don't look around and see what else you should be doing. We've been recovering from some wind damage and catching up on our outdoor planting, and all of this warm weather has caused the tomatoes just to take off, and it's turned into an instant juggle. We probably have a good solid day in here just pruning things out so we can get at things.
I think this just shows how much you got your nutrition and everything dialed in, because
that's true.
Like, look at this growth. This is crazy.
Yeah, the growth is unreal. Last year I experienced about a 30% faster growth rate than what you would find common for in soil. And I think that is just dialing in your pH, dialing in the right nutrients, and dealing with your sun exposure to the ability that you can't make sun, but you sure can hide sun. So right. It puts you in a better situation when you're just dealing with shade cloths. I have different stages. I have 30%. I have 50%. Actually, I have some 70% for the nursery areas. And then at this time of year, because this is growing and I haven't called it out, along here normally I have towers, and the only dangerous thing about towers is when you don't have a reliable electrical supply, which is very, very common in the Caribbean islands, certainly in the Bahamas. You need a backup system. So what I do is I run mine through an inverter, basically have a solar charger, charges a 12-volt battery. If the power kicks out, the contactor switches over to DC power, and hope it's not that long before, or you fire up a generator and keep it going.
Okay, so we got peppers here also?
Yep, we've got all kinds of peppers. We have sweet peppers in here. We have all kinds of, these are just the California Wonders. They, I keep it anywhere between 200, 250 plants on the go at any given time. Always gives me a great harvest. Never have to be looking for stuff for salads and salsas.
Okay, and do you have a mixture of varieties that you're using for tomatoes, or do you have a couple go-tos that you like?
Actually, I've kind of worked it out over 2 seasons now. The Better Boy, the Best Boy, and the Big Boy are my preferred indeterminates. I do grow some determinates that are Heat Masters, are one of my favorite, and it's only because they can handle about 10 to 15 degrees hotter temperature without getting into the problems with end blossom rot.
Okay, and so what's the timing like on these?
I put these in September.
Okay.
And I started harvesting tomatoes off of it in October, and I've been harvesting still. And then what happened was I slowly got behind, and this is starting to jungle out on me. And I'm not sure whether to get the pruners or the machete, but we'll get it back. And what I do is I kind of do a racetrack with this. I cut everything off except 12 leaves. And last year I had almost a complete circle.
Sure, the lower and lean.
Yeah, the lower and lean, drop and lean works really, really well. And right now all it's doing is it's putting all of its energy and effort into leaves, and you don't sell leaves. So you cut all that stuff away. I have suckers upon suckers here, so clearly this has been neglected for too long.
Okay, but generally you probably get a huge yield out of here.
I get a tremendous yield. I get far more than I can ever use. I've got a total of 30 plants in here, and on average I'm pulling probably at least a solid bushel every 5 to 6 days.
Okay. And so you put these in September. Is there a point which you change them over to new plants?
I don't until I carry them all the way through the season.
Okay.
What I do is I will play with the nutrients on them. If I find that they're struggling a little bit, then I will try to dial it in a little bit more. When I want to force a crop off, of course, then I just change. I back off on the nitrogen and work the nutrients to feed the fruit rather than feed the plant. And then if you cut them back and you really want to almost revigorate them, you go back to a higher nitrogen feed, get more green growth, and then you can cut back again and get your fruit.
Very cool. And because this is all screened in, you don't have much pest problems in here?
So far, I don't have pest problems. Here I use everything natural. I don't bother using chemicals. I don't spray with anything other than neem oil. I do use a little bit of cayenne pepper and a little bit of cinnamon and extract of oregano, extract of grapefruit. And if you keep on top of it and you look at it, you can usually keep the pests down. If you don't look at it, then you better have it inside a greenhouse where they can't get in, or else they'll take over very, very quickly. All right, so in here we have just a shade house. We call it the lettuce house. Basically, at any given time, we have around 500-600 plants on the go. These have just been transplanted. They were doing extremely well until it got very hot. Now we're mid-afternoon. They're starting to perk up, but it'll probably be 3 or 4 more days before they get adjusted to the new system. And this is all just a cracky system here. It's done without any oxygenation or introduction of any air. What happens is, as it consumes the nutrients, some of the root systems grab the nutrients and some of them start grabbing the air. And arguably, if you provide aeration, and I have proven it, you will probably get, you will get about a 10-15% better yield. But when energy costs are so expensive in the Bahamas, you sit there and you say, is the 15% worth all the energy you're putting into it? And the answer is a resounding no. So basically, I fill one of these containers up. I plant my lettuces when they're about 4-5 weeks old, and I just walk away from them and harvest them. Harvest them in anywhere between 50-55 days.
That's awesome.
Yep. Then I grow some of the, and this is cilantro. And believe it or not, these cilantro were the size of a kale here probably 2 weeks ago. And this is just how fast they grow. They just love it. And cilantro, if you can imagine something like this, you know, you see how fragile it is. You've gone to the store, you've picked it up. Imagine putting that on a boat, shipping it over here.
Yeah, no way.
It just won't survive.
Right.
And it's, you know, here, I just pick it fresh and throw it into my salads.
Probably a lot of local people here that just never even had cilantro like that.
No. What you'll find in various areas of the Caribbean, there's not a lot of exposure to things that you get exposed to in more populated areas, simply because it's either too difficult to get, or if you can get it, it's too expensive once it's there. So there tends to be a very, very restricted diet forced upon by economic reasons and by practical reasons. So you start growing things that you know taste good because you've had experiences elsewhere. It doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be shared or enjoyed here.
All right, Mike, so a couple of things I want to have you talk about. First of all, I mean, this is a pretty cool setup you got going here. And you were talking before, it's pretty automated and you can really dial things in, which I can obviously see how well things are growing. So, but can you talk a little bit, before you talk about this, about, you know, how it is sourcing things being on an island like this, like even like soil mix and stuff like that?
Sure. Well, back to the old saying, everything comes by boat or plane, or it doesn't. So anything soil mix does not obviously have to come by boat because of the bulk size and the weight. So you place your order where you can find it. In this case, the closest place is from Florida, and then you ship it to a freight forwarder. The freight forwarder takes it, loads it onto the boat. The boat comes over, weather dependent. It arrives into the north part of the island, which is the only port that's open, and you've got to send your vehicles up there, and you pick up your pallets, and then you bring them down here. So by the time, I figured just about anything you ever get on the table has been moved 6 times.
Okay, and probably pretty expensive.
It is expensive.
Okay.
Nothing is free when it comes to freight. So you have several problems that you deal with when you're in the Bahamas. Certainly, one of the things is that the cost of electricity is 3 to 4 times what it is in North America. It's not as reliable, and it's subject to fluctuations in fuel surcharge. So when you start doing things, you have to kind of balance it out with the energy it's consuming versus what your end product is, to a factor of almost 3 times more than what it is in North America.
Okay, so a lot of things to consider there. And you were saying you reuse some of your potting mix too?
Yeah, one of the things that I do, just because I can, I've got the right conditions for it, is I will reuse my potting mix. So basically what I'll do is I will sieve it out, I will put it out onto big tarps just prior to the rainy season, let the rainy season wash them, flush all the salts and everything out, make sure that there's a little bit of a grade so it bleeds off, and then I move it into the sun and let the ultraviolet sterilize it, pack it back up and ready to go.
Okay.
And I can do that. I've done it as often as 3 times. After about 3 times, it starts to break down, but I'll tell you, it's better than not having anything, and it's still pretty efficient.
Okay. So let's give me a little quick breakdown of your setup here. Don't go into too many details, but...
Okay, well, simply, we have hard water, so we run it through an RO system. We store it in a tank. We transfer it over into a mixing tank. I have part A, part B, which are high concentrations. I have a computer that sits there and dials in my nutrient requirements and dials in my pH requirements, so that whenever my timers go off and draw from here, everything's a premix. I use one hobby mix throughout. Is it the most productive? No, you can dial in very heavily every different type of plant, but that requires multiple reservoirs, multiple attendants to the problems. Here I just do one hobby mix, and you know what? Everything seems to love it.
All right, so we're inside now, and this is climate controlled, and you use this for growing microgreens and also...
Yeah, I do all my seed starts. I do the microgreens. Okay. I grow my lettuces. Any of the cold weather crops, I prefer to grow them in here because they don't bolt, and they're just not designed for hotter weather.
Probably gives you more consistent production in the summertime.
It gives me consistent production.
Okay.
The downside of it is that energy costs are high, so I make sure I use very efficient LED lights. I make my own stuff. These are downspouts for rain gutters. Just drill them out, drop your things in. You notice the difference here. This is ready to be trimmed. This one's trimmed. It's on a regrowth. So I get at least 2 harvests off of it. This one here is a regrowth. You can see it was all trimmed away. So it's a good way of doing it. Just got to watch certain varieties do better at that than others. And I grow about 6 different varieties. So the idea is that, I just go in and take cuttings from each of it, put it all together, and you get a nice salad mix. And then if I feel like adding other things into it, then I grow them in the seedling racks. And I do microgreens. I'll do a lot of what they call the elegant or the fancy mixes, and you just grow them up to 3-4 inches and cut them off and throw them into a salad. Just makes them pretty decent. I play with everything. I find that when you have a controlled environment, almost everything grows well. Then it just becomes a matter of personal preference. But I like to keep a couple of butter heads, I like crisp heads, some romaines, and then I just, I'll look at whatever's being offered out on sale, and I'll pick them up and see how they go. So sometimes they grow well, sometimes they don't.
So this is your nursery microgreens setup, and then also your starts are growing right in front of you.
Yeah, this is basically where I do all my outside work because I can. The climate's suitable. Just run all my racks, my trays, put my stuff together. Then when I plant my seeds, I do all my starts here, get them so that they get a nice root system. Once they get a root system, I find a home for them. And it's a nice mottled sun. It doesn't get too hot, gets enough sun. Everything seems to like it here, so I keep it here.
So this is more shaded.
Yeah, this is more shaded. This is shaded, I'd say probably about 50% of the day. It gets the morning sun, which I find the best for all my starts. They just can't handle the afternoon sun. And with the shade, good access to water, they get themselves the nutrients. Most of this stuff, grows about second, third set of true leaves before I even start putting nutrients to it, which is one of the reasons I love microgreens.
I also like the placement here because it's right near a lot of the foot traffic.
Yeah.
And so you have to check on it because you see it so often.
Exactly. Yeah, you put it in your path. It's the old story. If you have to trip over it, you usually will either notice it or move it.
All right, Mike, thanks for showing me around today, and so impressed by what you got going on, especially in such a short time period, how you've set everything up. But another thing I want to say is your property is so beautiful. Obviously, we're right on the water here, but you rent out this beautiful villa too. Can you talk a little bit about, like, if people are interested in coming to stay here?
Thanks, Josh. It's my pleasure showing you through, and you didn't take all my coconuts in. I got lots of coconuts. They're my real pride. This is Kettlestone Luxury Villa, and it's just a funky little place to get away. It's what we call barefoot elegance, and I hope that you enjoyed your stay here. And if you look around, this is what I live with every day, and I like sharing it with people.
Cool, so people can come and stay here and rent out the villa?
Absolutely. They can find me on my website, kettlestonoluxuryvilla.com. I'm also on VRBO, and it's a place where you can come, chill, partake in the ocean, partake in the nature, and I'll give you a tour of the farm, and if you want to talk farming with me, that'd be great.
Cool, and then use some of the ingredients for some of the food here.
We use all the ingredients we can. We make pizzas here right from scratch. We grow all of our own stuff for the pizzas. We have, when you get here, we give you a little pair of scissors, and we show you where the farm is, and you help yourself the entire week you're here.
All right, Mike. Thanks so much for showing us around.
Thanks a lot. It's my pleasure.
So I hope you enjoyed this video. Mike's got a super cool thing going on here. And again, if you want to check out his website, I'll leave a link down below. And please like the video, share it with your friends, and please subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.